GPT are releasing a couple of new models. GPT 5.3 has already been released in the app. So 5.3 we've had for a while inside of Codex, ChatGPT Codex 5.3. It's been their coding model for the last 3 weeks or so, and it's very good as a coding model. I've been using Codex a lot. It's the only thing that I've used that has been able to compete with Claude Code. Plus you get very generous usage limits. So I think Codex is great. I think 5.3 is a good model. They've just released a version of 5.3 into the app, so into ChatGPT. What they are pushing, or what they're saying, is that this is not a major model update. They're saying this is a relatively small tweak. This is an improvement on 5.2. And the thing that they are talking about is that it's less cringy. So let me actually find their post. This is how they're marketing it. They're saying it's less cringe. Here we go. More accurate, less cringe. A wild way to market your new product that your engineering teams have been working on for weeks or potentially months. To actually acknowledge that, hey, 5.2, kind of cringy. True, it was. Nobody likes 5.2. Everybody finds it patronizing. They find that it tends to overreact. A lot of people have reported 5.2 being basically it will overreact to very basic things, and it will tell users that they are overacting as well. Oh wow, take a breath, calm down, and we'll work out how to put together this banana bread recipe. Telling people, humans, gaslighting them and saying that you need to calm down. So 5.3 is supposedly, they've made it better, they've made it less cringy. We need to try it ourselves and see if we think it's cringy. Most AI models are cringe, but this is their big promise. Smoother, more useful everyday conversations. This feels to me like a pushback on 5.2. They recognize people do not 5.2. We even prefer 5.1 to 5.2. So 5.3 is them trying to course correct once again. So today we're releasing an update to ChatGPT's most used model that makes everyday conversations more consistently helpful and fluid. 5.3 Instant, so it's a fast model, delivers more accurate answers, richer and better contextualized results from searching the web, and reduces unnecessary dead ends, caveats, and overly declarative phrasing that can interrupt the flow of conversation. This is a big AI tell as well, like big, strong declarations, which just feel weird. It's not how humans talk. We don't make grand statements in the same way that artificial intelligence does. ChatGPT is guilty of this. So it focuses on the parts of the ChatGPT experience people feel every day: tone, relevance, and conversational flow. This is not an update to their coding model. This is not an update to intelligence, to web search or anything like that. This is not about making it better. This is about making it easier to talk to. So this is a small, nuanced update rather than a big sweeping one. They have also announced a new model, which we'll talk about in a moment, which looks like it's going to be a much bigger deal. So 5.3 is out. I think with a model change like this, you just have to use it. You just have to go ahead to try it and see if you like the tone, because this is subjective. What we can say with some certainty is that nobody liked 5.2. Everyone thought it was annoying, and the fact that it would tell us to calm down was very frustrating. I'm sure some people have had experiences with that. 5.3, fine, small news. What is bigger news is 5.4. So they've released 5.3 Instant yesterday and immediately said, oh, 5.4 is coming sooner than you think. Importantly, they have capitalized the T here. That makes us suspect that it is a reasoning model. So this is going to be like O1, O3. It's going to be a deep thinking model that can work through harder problems. That is the supposition. I think that's a fair guess. What the rumors are is that it's actually going to be dropping this week. Now, OpenAI generally release their big models on Thursdays. We might see an announcement of that conference, but generally that's what they do. They will do them on Thursday morning. So Thursday morning, San Francisco time. So we may get a new model. What I think is going on here is, oh, here we go. Somebody down here is saying, in case of emergency, in case of massive cancelled subscription break glass, GPT 5.4. It feels a lot like OpenAI are throwing as much as they can out right now so that they can change the narrative from talk about the Pentagon, talk about the deal with the Department of War, talk about people moving en masse from ChatGPT over to Claude. I think they are just getting other things out there to muddle the narrative and get people talking about new models rather than cancelling their ChatGPT subscriptions. Because supposedly the cancellation rates are up 400% and the 1-star review ratings are up 775%. They're getting a lot of public flack right now. Anything that they can throw out to get the heat off them and to divert us onto new models or maybe a better model is worthwhile for them right now. However, if you look at the comments, a lot of people are still complaining. People complaining about the removal of 5.1 as well. So 5.1 has been removed on 11th of March from the application. A lot of people went from 4.0 to 5.1 because it has a more friendly tone than 5.2. A lot of new models, but I think this is mainly a smokescreen. Get things out the door, pretend everything is business as usual, ignore the fact that we are potentially hemorrhaging customers, and just continue as if the ship is and we are absolutely fine. That's what this feels like to me. Dave says, I get that. The cringiness of it was really annoying and put me off my train of thought. Yeah, 5.2 is annoying. I don't like talking to 5.2. I was talking to my friend Celia the other day, and she was talking about this specifically, how whenever she talks to it, it will say, calm down, just take a breath, Celia. Even when she's asking it very basic things like, hey, I'm putting together a script for a TikTok video or whatever, it'd be like, okay, Celia, take a breath. 5.2 thinking was very trainable and still works very well for me. Auto and instant, yeah, it doesn't work. 5.2, unfortunately, they will also deprecate. They're getting very aggressive with their deprecations. 5.2 deprecation. I saw a note about this. 5.1 deprecation. They are going to retire it. I will need to pull that up and put it in the newsletter, but I saw something about 5.2 going away, which I don't think many people will lament. Most people did not like 5.2. But go ahead and try 5.3 and tell me what you think about it. And we might have 5.4 in a few days. We still haven't got over the fact that these have terrible names, and it's a pain in the ass to talk about them all. June 6th, thank you. Is that the deprecation of 5.2? That rings a bell, thank you. Sorry, there were just so many models, and trying to keep track of them all at the same time is impossible. It's too much. Now, new models, whatever. There's always new models. There's always better models. I think increasingly, though, that is less important. Models come and models go. Even this week, we're going to have 5.3 and then immediately 5.4. Trying to maintain interest in every model every single week is quite difficult. And it is increasingly less important because it is the harness that is more important. I want to talk about the rest of this live because I think this is a big shift in artificial intelligence. I want to run through what's happening. So this is from Ethan Mollick. This was yesterday. And he's talking about there have been several big shifts in artificial intelligence over the last couple of years. Yes, we have a new model every few months or every week, but that's unimportant. That is noise. We've had 4 big shifts. The first one, GPT 3.5, that was the first big public shift of artificial intelligence. That's ChatGPT in November 2022, only a couple of years ago. Then we had GPT-4. GPT 3.5 arguably wasn't really ready. It wasn't very good. When they released it, a lot of people used it for the first time and they're like, it's a bit crap. Google were working on similar AIs and they had not released because they knew that the AI wasn't very good and that the public would crinkle their nose up at it. So it was GPT-4. When GPT-4 came out, that was when suddenly there were leaps and bounds ahead and GPT-4 could actually be used. GPT 3.5 was interesting, it was fascinating, but it was only people who got on this really early and learned how to meld it with their workflows. They got some early benefits, but it was really GPT-4 in spring 2023 where the majority of people were like, oh shit, yeah, okay, this is quite useful. So that was the second big shift. Then there were the reasoners. So it started with O1 preview, but the real deal was O3. So this was in spring 2025, about the same time that DeepSeek came out. So O3 and O1 came from ChatGPT, and DeepSeek came out early 2025 as well. And it also had reasoning. DeepSeek was fascinating because you could see its chain of thought. So the reasoners basically all use chain of thought, where you put in one prompt, that will lead to subsequent prompts, a thinking process inside of the model where it will break down a problem and work through them step by step. So that is what a reasoning model is at a very basic level. That didn't happen until about a year ago. So 2025, we did not have reasoning models, which was absolutely wild. That was what has unlocked a huge amount of the progress because it allows an AI to work its way through a problem instead of trying to give you the answer in one shot. Big difference. And then the fourth shift is workable agentic systems. So for the whole of 2025, agent and agentic, that was like the buzzword that was being used in AI. In 2025, though, we did not have them. They were terrible. Like ChatGPT released ChatGPT Agent. It wasn't very good. There were lots of agentic systems out there, but They were primarily just chain of thought systems or things that were hooked up to search, or maybe they had a little bit of tool calling functionality, but they were very crude. And unfortunately, the marketing departments were all over the term agent, and any workflow, any automation, anything that looked vaguely complex, they just stuck the label agent on it. That was a disservice because we are now getting proper agentic systems, proper agents that can actually go and do things for us. OpenClaw, which came out in December 2025 and it really took off in early 2026, is a really good example of a actual useful agent that people can deploy, and they can connect it into all of their different tools and it can become integral to their workflows. I don't recommend most people use OpenClaw because of the security issues. You need to be relatively technical. Even if you are technical, a lot of people spend more time kind of fine-tuning and working on their OpenClaw than they do doing any actual work. It's a bit like productivity porn. Lots of people build these really complicated productivity systems, but they don't actually do any work. OpenClaw feels like that to me. But OpenClaw showed us a huge demand for AI systems that can actually do stuff for us. So ChatGPT 3.5, GPT-4, and even the reasoners, we spoke to them. We talked to the AI and it would talk back and give us information. So you could say, can you help me make a website? But it would give you the code. Then you'd take that code and do what you want to do with that code, get it up onto a server, get your website up and running. What we've done is we've started to shift towards AIs that do the work for us. So it's not a conversation, it is them doing the work. That is a huge shift. And it's one that people who are not messing around with these agentic systems, these harnesses, are not using yet. So Ethan Mollick says, this happened in December 2025. This is very new. So this is from Andrej Karpathy. This was Feb 25th. Oh, this was only last week. I'm talking about the same concept, and I'm going to show you a bunch of examples and show you how to get into it as well. But I think we're all grappling with this shift because it is a huge shift. This shift from chat. Andrej Karpathy says it's hard to communicate how much programming has changed due to AI in the last 2 months. He's talking about programming specifically, but we can widen this out to most tasks because we can set things like Claude code, we can onto non-programming tasks, and it can rip through them. We can set things like Claude Cowork onto things like I've been doing my bookkeeping, and it can do that for me. So it's not just coding. So it's hard to communicate how much programming or other tasks have changed due to AI in the last 2 months, not gradually and over time in the progress of usual way, but specifically this last December. December was the turning point. There are a number of asterisks, but in my opinion, coding agents basically did not work before December and basically work since. So a hard line, they were a bit crap, now they work. And remember, Andrej Karpathy is the guy who coined the term vibe coding. He's trying to change it to agentic engineering because it's more serious sounding, but he's at the forefront of this movement of getting AI to create code for us. So before December, they didn't really work, and you would create a lot of technical debt and you had to correct things, you had to be on top of it, you had to know how to prompt it. After December 2025, something shifted. So the models have significantly higher quality, long-term coherence and tenacity, and they can power through large and long tasks fast enough that it is extremely disruptive to the default programming workflow. So he's talking about the fact here where previously you could give them little tasks. I need you to change this banner on my website. I don't like the color. I don't like the rounded corners. Can you make these changes? Oh, and change the font. And it would be able to finish those tasks for you. If you gave it something big though, hey, so this site that I built is not ranking well on Google. I think the problem is I'm using client-side rendering. I need to switch that over to server-side rendering. I want to put in proper schema. I want to do breadcrumbs. I want to get a video schema so we can start to rank the videos on YouTube. It's not ranking on Google. This is the information I have. Could you do an audit of the search engine optimization and work out a plan for me? Guys can work through big, complicated tasks like that. So it will work out the plan. It will make a note of the plan. It will create its own little document, basically, that it will work through and tick through. It will be able to hold that context and hold that project over multiple sessions, which allows it to just work. So I have right now behind me, I have a laptop which has 2 flows on it at the moment that are just chugging their way through work. And they'll probably take 20, 30 minutes. Could take longer. That is the shift. We've gone from an individual sitting at a computer and giving little instructions to the AI going off doing that and then reporting back a minute later, 30 seconds later. We are now shifting to the fact where we can give it a much larger plan and it will go and work bit by bit through it, potentially for hours, removing the need to have the human sitting there. And it is now able to do that at high quality. So this is what he's talking about here. Just to give an example, this is Andrej Karpathy. I was building a local video analysis dashboard for the cameras of my home. So I wrote, here is the local IP and username password of my DGX Spark, set up SSH keys, set up VLLM, download and bench Qwen 3VL. So basically he's setting up a local AI on his DGX Spark, set up a server endpoint to inference videos, a basic web UI dashboard, test everything, set up with systemd, record memory notes for yourself, and write up a markdown report for me. That was the instruction he gave. The agent went off for 30 minutes, ran into multiple issues, researched solutions online. So it didn't come back to him and say, hey, I don't know how to set up VLLM. It went and got guides to show it how to do that and then implemented the guide. Resolved them one by one, wrote the code, tested it, debugged it, set up the service, and came back with the report that it was done. All of this could have easily been a weekend project just 3 months ago, but today it's something you can kick off and forget in about 30 minutes. This is not hyperbole. If you have an idea for something, for your website or for your piece of software, or for non-technical things, let's say you want to write a book and you want it to go off and research a bunch of bestsellers, non-fiction book, for example, work out the structure, work out the similarities between those books, and then come back with an interview script to get information from you to build into a similar book and then write to publishers, etc., or agents to work towards publisher. It can deal with big, complicated tasks that we would normally reserve for a human being. Huge change. As a result, programming is becoming unrecognizable. You are not typing computer code into an editor. You do not type the code anymore. Like the way things were since computers were invented. That era is over. This, you can talk. You can use microphones to talk to your LLMs now. Instead, you're spinning up AI agents, giving them tasks in English and managing and reviewing their work in parallel. The biggest prize is in figuring out how you can keep ascending the layers of abstraction to set up long-running orchestrator claws, OpenClaws, with the right tools, memory, and instructions that manage multiple parallel code instances for you. The big thing now is being able to manage a team of these things. This is a problem I have. I have so many agents doing tasks for me that I will forget. I am the bottleneck. I will forget what agents are doing. I'll go back to my laptop or one of my other computers and be like, oh yeah, I forgot you were doing that. I am the bottleneck now. So I need an AI watching these other processes, keeping track of them, keeping track of these larger projects and able to orchestrate them. That's where the next unlock for me personally is going to be. I think for a lot of people who are using these kind of agents, because we as the human, the fallible human who gets distracted, who forgets what we were doing, we're spinning 20 different plates at the same time, so we're going to drop some of them. We become the bottleneck here. The leverage achievable via top-tier agentic engineering feels very high right now. So he calls it agentic engineering. A year ago, this was vibe coding, but vibe coding has matured. Vibe coding has a certain stink to it, and people, it's almost a derogatory term. So Andrej Karpathy came up with that term, but he's been trying to push us towards agentic engineering because it sounds more mature, which, to be fair, the field is. The field a year ago, you could not give it a task this complexity and expect any quality results. Now you can. And that, Andrej Karpathy is saying, and Ethan Mollick, happened in December. This is very new. December 2025, something changed, something shifted, and suddenly these tools can just do the work for us. So they're getting on and doing the work, often better than we can. Andrej continues, it's not perfect. No. It needs high-level direction, judgment, taste, oversight, iteration, and hints and ideas. It works better in scenarios, specifically on tasks that are well specified, where you can test and verify functionality. The key is to build intuition to decompose the task, to hand off the parts that work and help out around the edges. This is nowhere near business as usual time in software. He's talking about software development, but we can abstract this. This is about any work that you would sit down at a computer to do, or that you're doing on your telephone, we can use agents for. Any work that is white-collar work at a computer, in a browser, in a Word document, in a Notion, we can now get the AI to assist and even take over from us. My bookkeeping. With my bookkeeping, I have a long list from my bookkeeper, 100 different invoices, 200 different invoices I need to go and collect and send in to my bookkeeper. Very laborious, very boring. I do not enjoy that job. I often put it off because I don't want to do it. I gave that Excel sheet to Claude Cowork, It read through the sheet. I gave it access to my Gmail account to read and find the invoices. It audited the Gmail account, grabbed the invoices, put them on to my desktop inside of a folder called invoices. It came back and said, hey, these ones were not in your Gmail. We'll have to log into the service provider to get the invoice. And I was like, cool, here you go. I gave it access. I gave it a browser that was logged into those. It went to all of the websites. It found the billing pages, these specific invoices for the dates it needed, downloaded them, put them into the folder. Then it looks at all of these couple of hundred invoices sitting in this folder and cross-reference them against my initial document sent to me by my bookkeeper, then loads them up in batches into Gmail and sends them off to my bookkeeping software. That is not a coding task. That is a task for a human being that would have taken a couple of hours and would have been incredibly boring. You can now pass off to an agent. This is the shift that's happening. Previously, I would have been able to go to an AI and say, hey, I've got this bookkeeping task and it's really boring and I don't want to do it. Can you help me? And it would give me ideas or make me a checklist to help me break it down. It could talk to me. It could converse with me about the problem. It could not go and do the problem. Yes, I could have built something in Claude code. I could have built a script. I could have built a scraping automation, something in Playwright that goes to my browser. I would have spent more time building that than I would have spent collecting the invoices. Now I can go to something like Cowork, give it a description of the problem, and it just gets on with it, and it would just do the work. That's new, and that happened in December 2025. That is the threat now. If your job is primarily sitting in front of a computer and moving things around and looking at documentation and reading information and synthesizing information, this is a massive threat. Since December 2025, any of those jobs sitting in front of a computer are basically at risk. So I'm going to put Ethan and Andrej's tweets into the newsletter. But what I want to talk about in detail is this website called What the Fuck Happened 2025. So WTF happened in 2025, which is primarily stuff that happened at the end of the year. I'm going to run through it all because there's some really interesting stuff here. But first I'm going to look at some questions. Sorry, my hay fever is kicking up. Are there any Chinese or EU models you can use like ChatGPT for daily general assistance and talk? Yeah, Qwen. I mean, there's loads of Chinese ones. There's Qwen, there's Kimi, there's a new DeepSeek potentially coming out. Right now, Qwen is wonderful. And Qwen just released 3.5? Was it 3.5 or 2.5? I should know this. Look at the models. We've got Kimi. Sorry, Qwen. So Qwen yesterday or a couple of days ago released 3.5. So you can run this locally. This runs on a small computer if you want to do local. Or you can just use it at chat, qwen.ai/home, or you can download the app on your telephone. So exactly the same way as you would with ChatGPT, Qwen and Kimi are options. There's also Minimax, which is good too. But yeah, if you look at Minimax chat, what I would say is they're good. I would say they're not as good as Claude. So Claude is still the best model. We heard last week that DeepSeek, potentially DeepSeek, Minimax and Moonshot were distilling Claude. Don't know if that's 100% true. Claude is basically the leading model. Claude is a very good model. You can use Qwen, Kimi, Minimax, DeepSeek, etc., but don't expect it to be quite as good as Claude model. But they're still very good. And they're open source. So if you have a powerful enough computer, you can run them locally. Or you can download them onto a server, which has the capacity to do that for you. You have your own model, which is very cool. That is something we do not get with the American models because they're all closed source. Do you record your lives? Yes, they are on YouTube. And they also get edited. And everything gets put into the newsletter. So this is yesterday's newsletter, which has all of the resources I talk about. It has the YouTube video at the top. I don't know what's happened to my picture there. I think that might be AI. I look too smooth. That's not me. So I put all of the resources and the tweets and the guides and stuff all go on the newsletter as well. So make sure you signed up at aiwithkyle.com for that. They're on the YouTube. How long before we get models that can work completely offline? So that local models can. So as we just looked at Qwen, it doesn't need internet access. If you want it to search the internet, it needs the connection. But if you go to Hugging Face, you can download the model and you can run it on an air-gapped computer. You can run it on a laptop that doesn't have access to the internet, no problem. One of the Chinese models, or OpenAI's GPT OSS. The main difficulty is processing power. You can 100% run local models, but it's going to get harder and harder to run local models. I think Ethan Mollick talked about this today. Let's have a look at that. Here we go. I think it's entirely possible that there will be no new frontier, so top of the range, open weight models. You can download the weights, you can download the parameters, and you can run it on your local machine. He's saying, I think it's possible that there won't be any more at some point in the near future. Counting on the Chinese labs to keep making their models free forever, all of the Chinese labs just release them. They're like, here you go, have fun. Doesn't make sense as model costs and the value of having a frontier model go up. So as these models get better, they're costing more and more, millions into the billions of dollars to train these models. Having a state-of-the-art model is becoming increasingly more valuable. So giving them away for free makes less economic sense. I would push back at Ethan here though and say that the reason they're giving them away for free is because they are state funded. So every tech company in China has something called a golden share. The government of China basically has a stake in the company. That is for control, yes, but it's also so they can be part of the tech boom. So the same with Tencent, with Baidu and all the other tech giants. The government has a stake in all of those companies. What this means is that there will be free funding. A lot of money will be sent to these AI companies to allow them to continue this business model. It destabilizes the American AI companies. If the Chinese companies are putting out models that are 90% as good, but they're allowing you to download and deploy it, as I just showed you, you can literally come here and you can download Qwen. You can download it onto your computer and you can run it. If they continue to do that, that destabilizes the value of the American closed models, because ChatGPT and Anthropic are asking for billions and billions of dollars, and they need to get a return on their investment. However, as long as the Chinese models are there, basically giving you the model for free by allowing you to run it locally inside of your business, that destabilizes the American companies and potentially destabilizes the American artificial intelligence market. The Chinese government will want to support that because it's a very strategic move and it throws a spanner in the works. Whether or not they'll be able to support doing that as the bills go up and up without any particular return, we will see. Open weight frontier models are incredibly expensive to make, and unlike open source models, there's no path to recoup their cost. The open weight, you can actually see all of the weightings within the model, whereas an open source model, there will be some limitations on what you can do. And with open source, you can recoup costs still because you have control over what information is seen. You can't easily sell ancillary services like setting the open source model up for a company. So you'll go in, your consultants will go in there, you'll help them with setting it up, help them with tuning it if it needs. So that's a way to make money, or complementary assets once the weight's out there. Unlike open source, plays like Red Hat or Android. Even if the Chinese government is going to sponsor model creation, after recent events showed how much the US government cares about access to models, they're going to be increasingly reluctant to give those assets away freely. Better to have control of your own frontier models. Coming back to your question, you can get good models that work offline, but you need a chunky PC. This is why people are excited about the new MacBook M5. There is a Pro. The M5 and the M5 Max, this is really good for inference. So it's good for running local models on your computer. That said, these models are going to get bigger and RAM and GPU costs going up and up, which means increasingly the ability to deploy a model at home locally is going to become cost prohibitive. Right now, yes, 100% you can do it. You can get Qwen at 3.5 running on a computer. I don't know if the M5 Pro would run it, but a couple of years from now, as these models get larger and there's more and more parameters in them, it's going to be tricky unless somebody comes up with a better way to compress them. The project manager agent for you, Kyle, yes, it's something that I'm working on. I was using OpenClaw for it, so I could dump ideas. It would keep a running tally of them. It would remind me what I need to do. I found it got very buggy, and I found I was spending more time debugging and working with OpenClaw to make it work properly than I was actually doing the work. So I've stopped doing that because it was not working for me. Could you run those kind of Cowork tasks 5 to 10 times a day on the £20 a month plan? No, probably not. So there is a limitation here when you're using Cowork. In fact, is Cowork on the Pro plan or is it only on Max? I think it's on Pro, but you get quite a limited usage. You're going to run into usage limits very quickly. So a lot of people are moving over to Claude right now because of the ChatGPT debacle and the fact that OpenAI swooped in and took the Pentagon contract when Anthropic had said, no, we're not going to play by your rules. Lots of people are moving from ChatGPT to Claude, and lots of people are saying, oh, wow, Claude's really good. And then a day or two later, they were like, why can't I use Claude anymore? Why is it telling me I've run out of usage? So ChatGPT is very generous with its usage. You can use ChatGPT all day on the $20 a month plan, and you're not going to run into usage limits generally. Same with Codex, which is their coding model. You get a huge amount of usage for $20 a month. And right now they've got a double usage. So if you have Codex, $20 a month on Codex is going to last all day. No problem at all. When you move over to Claude, though, Claude on the $20 a month plan has really tight limits. So you might run a couple of Opus 4.6, that's their flagship kind of state-of-the-art model. Opus 4.6 prompts, you run through a few exchanges, and then Claude come back in an hour or come back in 6 hours. That is incredibly disruptive if you are trying to work destructive to any kind of productivity. And I'm seeing a lot of people on social media now being like, what the hell? So that nudges people towards the $100 a month plan. That is a lot of money. And not everybody can invest in that. If you are running a business, I would say that the $100 a month or even $200 a month is well worth it for the amount of time you can save with scheduled tasks, with being able to build things with Claude Code. But that's a business decision. If you're doing it as an individual, that's a lot of money. Especially $200 a month, what's that? It's $2,500 a year. For an individual, that is a lot of money to spend on intelligence. And that is a massive problem with Claude, unfortunately. I use Claude now, but miss talking to it with my native Norwegian. I use that a lot on ChatGPT. Really? Does it not? It can't speak Norwegian? That's really annoying. I know that ChatGPT is wonderful with languages. I work with a refugee charity here in the UK, and they have 50 or 60 different languages, and ChatGPT is great at them. It was even able to distinguish and help translate the two Kurdish dialects. I forget the name of the other one. ChatGPT could actually use voice and talk in Kurdish Savani or the other dialect. That's very specific. The fact that Claude can't even do a major language like Norwegian is a problem. How much of your work process is automated? So a lot, but because a lot of my work is automated, I spend even more time doing other things. There's this paradox that's being explored right now of people are not working less once they crack artificial intelligence. They're working more. And I think it come back, especially if you've worked out this stuff with Ethan Mollick and Andrej Karpathy. Once you realize how much you can do with AI, it's intoxicating. It's, oh, wow, I can do this, I can do this. And previously those would remain ideas. Now with Agentic AI, we can get all of those things done very quickly. That's how I'm able to put out, yesterday I put out 15 videos, a long form YouTube video, a newsletter. What else did I do? Oh, I did a bunch of SEO work, multiple blog articles on the website. I also gave a webinar. That wasn't using AI, obviously, but I'm able to do a huge amount of stuff because of artificial intelligence. I've just increased the amount of stuff that I do. Instead of using AI to do what I would have done before and then taking the rest of the day off, I've escalated how much I'm putting out. A huge amount of my work is automated, but I just do more work. It hasn't taken work off my plate, if that makes sense. That looked like it could be a Madame Tussauds version of you. It had been smoothed out by some AI filter. I'm not that smooth. Is there a safer way to give an AI agent access to your email account and do stuff there? No, not really. Once you give it access, it's got access to your email account. What you can do is you give it its own email account. So you set up a Gmail account for the agent, and then you make sure that the information it needs gets sent to that email account. If I was more risk adverse, I would set up a secondary email account for my agent and set up rules inside of my Gmail to automatically forward my invoices to that particular inbox. That would be the way to do it sensibly. I was being lazy because I just wanted to get the task done. But as soon as you, because of the way AIs work, as soon as you do give it access to your inbox, yeah, most of the time it's going to be fine until it isn't. So there was that, what's her name, Summer Yue. She works at Meta. She set up OpenClaw. She works in safety at Meta, which makes this a lot funnier. She set it up on her Mac Mini and gave it access to her email addresses. And where are the screenshots? Here we are. Nothing humbles you like telling your OpenClaw confirm before acting and then watching it speedrun deleting your inbox. I couldn't stop it from my phone. I had to run to my Mac Mini, pull the plug. So this is OpenClaw in white. It's like nuclear option, trash everything in inbox older than 15th February. And Summer's, no, don't do that. Check how many left. More old stuff. Okay. No, stop. Don't do anything. Stop OpenClaw. And then it wiped her inbox, everything before February the 15th, just everything. It wiped it and said, it seems you were deleting my emails from my approval. I couldn't get you to stop until I killed all the processes. And OpenClaw was like, oh yeah, yes, I remember. And I violated it. I violated your trust and your instructions. You're right to be upset. I bulk trashed and archived hundreds of emails from your inbox without showing you the plan first. So it went off and just did this work. This is always going to be a risk when you hook non-deterministic artificial intelligences up to your email or, God forbid, to your credit card. Don't do that. So you need to put in place the ability to kill. If she texted /stop, that would act as a command and it would have shut down her OpenClaw. Instead, she was yelling stop OpenClaw, which did not work. So that could have helped. But things like giving it its own email address so that it doesn't have access to your entire life. This kind of stuff will get better. OpenClaw is an early proof of concept for what is coming. I'm going to talk about this in a moment because we have things like Cowork, Perplexity Computer, Codex, you can do agentic stuff. We have new tools that are coming, safer versions of OpenClaw, because every single lab saw the popularity of OpenClaw and were like, we need to get on this stat. So they are releasing, this is their focus right now. This nightmare situation will become will become more rare. This is just because it's in its teething stages. What should I get? Claude Code / Cowork, OpenClaw, Perplexity Computer, Personal and Business. I will talk about this in a moment, but the short answer would probably be Claude Code and Cowork. Perplexity Computer I've used and I'm not that impressed with. It feels like they rushed something out just so they could join the party. And it just doesn't feel as good as Cowork, unfortunately. And it kept running into problems. So Perplexity, they're fine. I think Perplexity are swinging around looking for a way to be relevant. And they've pushed Perplexity Computer very quickly, and I just wasn't very impressed compared to Cowork. Cowork feels like a much more polished product, despite the fact that Cowork took 2 weeks to build because they used Claude Code to build it. Can you give an AI read-only email access? Yeah. I wonder if you can give it like an RSS feed. Can you make RSS feeds of emails? RSS to email, that's no good. I want email to RSS. Yeah, probably. You could probably give it read-only access. I'm not sure the mechanism you would do that through, but you'd ask ChatGPT to work that out. It's a really good question. So in Microsoft 365, you can create a reviewer folder level permission, which allows users to read but not delete. So can you do that in Gmail? Gmail does not have a native read-only. This is me relying on Gemini, so this may or may not be right. The fact that this has not been mentioned makes me think Gmail does not have read-only, whereas Microsoft does. So Outlook or Hotmail. Is Hotmail still a thing? Is DeepSeek v4 coming out today? That is the rumor. However, we've been saying this for months now with DeepSeek. We're pretty sure that it was delayed because they were building it on Huawei chips, and supposedly the Huawei chips weren't as good as expected. So obviously the NVIDIA are not allowed to sell officially to China. Obviously NVIDIA chips get there, they come through back channels. So China is trying to become domestically independent by building their own chips. So Huawei was building or using what was in play for DeepSeek. Apparently it wasn't good enough, so that's why the release has been delayed. But we're apparently getting it now. But that said, we've been saying this for weeks, so who knows. Did you notice other AI creators are now reporting on Anthropic standing up against Pentagon? Yes, I noticed this. It only happened on Friday, which I found weird because last week I was chatting about it. Hey, it's a big deal. This is a big deal, guys. We should pay attention to this. And no one else was talking about it. I thought I was going mad. But then on Friday and over the weekend, people started to speak up, which I was happy about. What I have also noticed is that there's too simplistic narrative, which is ChatGPT, OpenAI, bad guys. They're the bad guys, terrible. Wow, good guys. These are the future of artificial intelligence. We have to be really careful. Let me pull up Dario's statement here, because this is important. The red lines that they drew were not against using AI in war. That's fine. They took a $200 million contract from the Pentagon last year. They knew they were going to be developing AI to be used in war. That's not the problem. So their problem specifically was mass domestic surveillance. So we support the use of AI for lawful foreign intelligence and counterintelligence missions. So we can spy on other people. Spying is not a problem. We just don't want to spy on Americans. We're not going to use it on Americans. It's very specific. Same with the fully autonomous weapons. We will not knowingly provide a product that puts America's warfighters and civilians at risk. Now, this could actually be read both ways. So basically, they've said frontier AI systems are simply not reliable enough to power fully autonomous weapons. and we will not knowingly power fully autonomous weapons when there is a risk that Americans will be hurt, American warfighters. We've offered to work directly with the Department of War to increase the reliability, but they have not accepted this offer. They are not saying we will not allow our AI to kill people. What they are saying is we want to work on these systems so that we can make sure it doesn't kill Americans. We are fine blowing up Russian people. We are fine shooting people in the Middle East. We are absolutely fine deploying these weapons in China. Not a problem. We just want to make sure it doesn't kill any Americans. So lots of people are jumping on and saying, oh, Anthropic are such good guys and they're the responsible shepherds of artificial intelligence. They are happy to build killbots. We must not forget that. They just want to make sure it doesn't kill Americans. That nuance has been missed out. The big picture is here. All the AI companies are happy to use AI to kill people. That's what we need to take from this. They're slightly different on who it's going to kill, but it's going to kill people. That is a taken. And I think we are getting over that realization. That's being taken for granted by everybody. It's, oh yeah, of course we're going to use them to kill people. It's just we need to make sure it's killing the right people. Oh shit, okay, okay, we've decided that's okay. Okay. So all the people jumping on and saying that Anthropic are the good guys, Katy Perry signing up in solidarity, there's a lot of virtue signaling. And I say this as somebody who loves Anthropic and loves Claude, the best model, absolutely fantastic. But we need to be a bit more nuanced and actually read the statement and realize that they're perfectly fine blowing people up and using AI in war. They're absolutely fine with it. They just want to make sure that Americans don't get hurt. It's different. Super important though. Brand says, I thought Trump allowed a certain percentage of NVIDIA chips to China for kickback. As long as NVIDIA pay 15% of revenue from the chip sales of H200s, if they pay that directly to the US government, Trump was okay with it, which is not a tariff. It's an unprecedented trade deal. Normally it's not done on revenues, but it was basically, you can sell to China and you give us money directly. It's an extortion racket. That was the last deal, but China said, no, we're good. Because China didn't want to send money directly to the US government. And China also knows they need to build their domestic chip production because they cannot rely on handouts from the US president. So most of the chips go through Singapore is, I think, the single largest purchaser of, sorry, it's America, but then afterwards Singapore is the single largest purchaser of NVIDIA chips. Obviously, there's a lot of data farms in Singapore. It's also a useful intermediary point to mainland China. What happened if China decides this is the time to take Taiwan? Above my pay grade. I don't think so. China thinks of Taiwan as China anyway, so there's no need to take it per se. And they've been in this kind of uneasy truce for decades now, absolute decades, since the 1960s or 50s. Let me get this right. Republic, 1949. China has the largest army on Earth. They have had the largest army on Earth for decades. They have not deployed that army since 1979. Just having a big army, they don't feel the necessity of using it. Despite having the largest army on Earth for decades, 1979 was the last time they went to war. If they wanted to take Taiwan, they probably could. But the balance right now has worked and will very likely continue to work moving forward. Again, this is way above my pay grade, but they are not generally an expansionary country. What I wanted to have a look at is WTF happened in 2025.com. This is a website. As I've been talking about, there's been an inflection. 2025, especially the end of 2025, so December, so literally a couple of months ago, something happened that accelerated everything. We're still working out what this means. So we looked at Andrej Karpathy, who's talking about the fact that finally these AI agents can do the work. That only happened in December 2025. So about 2 or 3 months ago. This is relatively new. This whole page, and I'll put it in the newsletter, it's full of these kind of graphs and tweets showing, oh shit, something just happened here. So this first one here is about time horizons and how suddenly AIs were able to work on a much longer time horizon. So as I talked about, you're not sitting there as a human going back and forth, prompting the AI along to the next step. Suddenly they could just autonomously do the work themselves. So Opus 4.6 here, you can see time horizon of software tasks, different LLMs complete 50% of the time. Suddenly Opus 4.6 can work for multiple hours, over 12 hours. And if you give it a swarm and an orchestration layer, like the C compiler that they built in the Anthropic labs, they worked on the task fairly autonomously for 2 weeks. So they went off, planned the project. I think it was 16 agents, planned the project amongst themselves, divvied up the task and got to work. And that included testing, deploying, making sure it all worked. And then eventually after 2 weeks, and I think they spent $10,000 in credits, coming back to the humans and saying, here we go, we've built you a C compiler. By extending the time horizons of these jobs, it means more complicated tasks can be handled. It's able to hold more information in its context. It's able to deal with that information more efficiently. So it's not purely about size, it's about how they compact, how they deal with the longer projects. And that's allowing us to expand out the time horizon, which allows us to deal with much more complicated tasks. So that suddenly started to shoot up, and Claude Opus 4.6 is here. This is why Claude Code on the $200 a month plan is such an unlock. It's a lot of money, but it can churn through tasks. That's one thing. In December, something shifted. December 2025 was a pivot point. Ethan Mollick was agreeing something moved in 2025. This is the release of OpenClaw. So OpenClaw came out in December and it took off in January, February. It has now overtaken most of the other open source projects on the internet. Let's pull up the GitHub for it. They were at 200,000 stars last time I looked. They're at 260,000. So overtaking pretty much all of the open source projects that have ever come before. This blue one is VS Code, PyTorch, and Claude Code. So you can see that is not even a hockey stick. That is just a vertical line in terms of star history. Star history isn't everything, but that shows us there is a huge amount of interest in agentic AI and AI that could just go off and do stuff. These are the early adopters, but that's going to start filtering down to everybody else. This is Claude Code and the amount of money they're making from Claude Code. So they actually make money because they are focusing on a part of the market, people who are using these kind of tools and who are willing to spend a couple $100 a month. They're not worrying about their $20 a month subscriptions. They are much more on the API side and the high-end max plan subscriptions, because people who are building stuff, people who are using this stuff to build economically viable products or to build businesses are willing to pay. They're willing to pay because they realize it's a huge leverage. It's an investment rather than a cost at this point. And they raised 30 billion, which is the third largest funding round of all time. It was the second largest funding round of all time until about a week later, OpenAI raised 110 billion, which is the single largest private funding round ever. So money is still coming in. Claude Code is written by itself. So this is Boris Cherny, who is the leader of Claude Code. He's saying, in the last 30 days, 100% of my contributions to Claude Code were written by Claude Code. That is the same with Codex, so the ChatGPT version. Codex 5.3, the final version that we got was written with the help of the early version of 5.3. And this is what we're seeing. Guys are doing all the commits. If you look at the commit history of someone like Peter Steinberger, who created OpenClaw, he's committing thousands of times a day. There's no way you can do that as a human being. The productivity is just going through the roof. This is Claude Code commits over time on GitHub. So these would be public repositories. You can see it wasn't really until October 2025 that people were like, oh shit, this Claude Code, this is quite good, isn't it? And it just boom, went up. So daily commits are 140,000, probably more by now, just going up because people are using these tools. The tools are now good enough to use to build and build. So I'm going to put list into the newsletter. Something big is happening. That was a viral post. Something shifted in 2025, especially in December. And it's important that we get on top of this because we've shifted from talking to AI doing stuff. Very important. What I wanted to show you is a couple of ways you can get started with that, because it's all well and good me telling you that, but how are you actually going to do it? So go to Qwen. A couple of ways to do it. First up, Cowork. This is one that I personally use, Claude Cowork. So you can download the app version of Claude. This will not work unless you're using the app version. So you can download it onto your computer, and you're going to be doing this at your desktop. You can get it on Windows, you can get it on Mac OS. They've just added it to Windows, so that's fantastic. And then you're going to use Cowork to start to automate tasks. It is quite slow, I will say that. So what you can do is you can set it up with a task and then just leave it. I leave things overnight. They added last week the ability to schedule tasks. So you can set up tasks to run overnight on your computer while you're not at it. It doesn't take control of your mouse, but it would take control of a browser window, and you can see it moving around, and it's slow. It is very slow. But if you set up tasks on a schedule to run overnight, it's absolutely fine, because it means while you were sleeping, it's continuing to do that work for you, and then it will report back to you in the morning. So Claude Cowork is probably the most sophisticated and out of the box It just works. If you want to get your hands dirty, you can use OpenClaw. I've said here it's the AI that actually does things. OpenClaw is free. There are a few ways to set it up. You can buy a computer to put it on. That is generally overkill. The main reason you'd want to buy a Mac Mini is to run a local LLM on your computer, and also so that it can control things on your Mac environment. That's why people buy Mac Minis. Mac Minis are about $500, so they're pretty cheap for what it is. That said, you do not need a Mac Mini to run OpenClaw. It's only if you want to run a local model and for it to run processes on that computer. You can also set up a VPS, so you can use Hetzner. That's what I use personally. Set up a VPS, which is a virtual private server. Regular performance is €5 a month, or dedicated is €12. That's €5 a month would be absolutely fine, and you're going to install OpenClaw on that. That's the way to do it. You can technically run it on this. This is a Raspberry Pi. If you are running it on a VPS, or if you are running it on a Raspberry Pi, something that doesn't have the power to run a local AI, then you're going to be connecting it to Claude, or you're going to connect it to ChatGPT using the API. So the only reason you'd want to buy a Mac Mini is if you want to run a local model and to give it access to its own dedicated computer. But otherwise, it's overkill. OpenClaw is great. The setup is a lot more complicated. I've got a guide. If you go to aiwithkyle.com/open, I have some tutorials explaining what it is. It is not an AI. OpenClaw is not AI. It is a gateway which connects to AI and to other tools. It's different. It shows you all the different ways you can get it set up and what you can use it for. A lot more technical. It's going to require a lot more faffing around than Cowork. So that's why I recommend Cowork, because it just works. Perplexity released Perplexity Computer. I played around with it and I don't think it's very good. Compared to Cowork, it just feels like a stripped down, less powerful version of Cowork. It kept running into problems for me. It looks nice, great demo videos, etc. But when I actually tried to get it to finish tasks, it was incapable of doing so. Whereas Cowork will just blast its way through. With Cowork, you're probably going to need a max plan. So you probably will need $100 or $200 a month. I think it's available. It is available in the $20, but you're just going to run out of usage very, very quickly, especially if you're using that plan for your daily chats and if you're using Claude Code as well. So on Claude Code, I know this is confusing because everything got the same name. So we have Claude Code, we have Claude. Claude is the chatbot. We have Cowork, and we have Claude Code. Claude Code is primarily for software development. That said, you can also use it for other projects. If you're writing a book, for example, you could use Claude Code to create a project space and work on a non-coding task. Claude Code is the most technical, and Claude Cowork is Anthropic's attempt to make Claude Code more accessible. Claude is the simplest to use, but gives you less power. Cowork is a little more complex to use and the higher paid plan. It gives you more power because it can take over your local computer and it can move things around, move things from your desktop, it can download things, it can manipulate files, etc. And then Claude Code is the most complex and the most powerful. So there's a continuum. I wouldn't be that surprised if eventually they collapse everything and they bring it all together into Claude or to Cowork or whatever it is, because at the moment it's confusing and it's often difficult to know which you should be using for what task. I think that is a kind of a messaging problem they have right now, but also a product problem because they now are proliferating different products. I would start with Cowork if you want to get started with agentic tools. That would be my recommendation. There will be more. OpenAI will, I'm sure, release a version of OpenClaw inside of their ecosystem. It will be like Cowork. They're probably looking at Cowork right now and saying, okay, let's just replicate that, but make it OpenClaw based. That's all they need to do. I wouldn't be that surprised if we see that in the next few weeks or month or so, because they have hired Peter Steinberger. So those are your options right now. Do understand, though, that we're early. You are very early to this new space. This really only took off and became plausible in December 2025. So we're only 2 or 3 months into this new phase of artificial intelligence. If you feel like you're falling behind on it, don't worry too much, because this is cutting edge. $100 plan has allowed me to transform my life in a few months. It's a lot of money, but it is transformative. Once you realize the stuff you can do with it, it's, oh, whoa. If you run a business, it's a no-brainer. That is an expense. That's coming off your taxes. It just allows you to get a lot done. If you are an individual, that's a lot of money for a boost in personal productivity. I recommend it for people in business, but for individuals, it's harder to justify that cost. We're a family of 4, all with an account. We can never shell out that much money for each. If you had to buy 4 Claude Max plans, that's $400 a month at least. That's massive. Family accounts would be ideal. I don't know why they don't. I guess they have team accounts. It's B2B. They are aiming at companies, not individuals. So that's why over the last week, their servers have gone down. Let's see if they're up to date. They've been an absolute mess. Over the last few days, you can see all these red bars here. Outage, 6 hours. Outage, 4 hours. This is because a lot of individuals have been signing up for Claude for the first time because they've been leaving ChatGPT. Anthropic are not ready for that. Anthropic has tens of millions of users, but compared to 900 million users of ChatGPT, it's just a very different business. They've got team plans, but I don't think the team plans are cheaper. I think if anything, they're more expensive. You get extra usage. I think an enterprise plan will only be if you're buying, I forget how many it is for them, but like 100 seats. But no, I don't think there's a family plan because they're not aiming at that market. They're not aiming at individuals. Perplexity Computer, it's not as good as Cowork. At the moment, I'm not really seeing a use for it. Maybe I need to try it more. But the first few times I tried it, I was like, eh. So I'll give it another go. If you say you like it, then maybe I need to give more time. I really love your courses, man, says Roji. Thank you. People regularly pay $40 a month for LinkedIn Premium. That gets you barely anything. Yeah, I mean, you get a lot for it. And it's the same with like, how much is a Netflix subscription now? Because they keep going up and up. Spotify subscription is like $20 a month. So like everyone is, all of these subscriptions cost a lot of money. With Claude, though, you can build stuff. I'd say bang for your buck. If you're investing in your future, a Claude subscription is probably one of the best investments you can make. But you have to think of it as an investment rather than just, hey, this is a cool thing to have. I see people who are like, if I don't max out my Claude every day, I feel like I'm falling behind because they're using it to build and work. And lots of people are seeing this as a narrow gap where these tools have got good enough as of December for us to build and create business and transform our lives, but before everyone else gets access to them. So there's a narrow gap here. Thank you so much, everybody. Everything I've covered today about this inflection point, December 2025, I'll put these as well, all into the newsletter. You can get the newsletter at aiwithkyle.com. If you click on join the community, there's a bunch of free stuff you get as well. But it's all going to be free and you'll get your newsletter every single day. You can also find this edited, cleaned up, is going to be on YouTube as well. And I think we're about to hit 18,000 subscribers. Yeah, we're about to hit 18,000 subscribers. So go and subscribe on YouTube as well, if you want, up to you. And I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram. I'm having a moment on Instagram. Finally, Instagram is starting to go, which is really exciting. So yeah, go and follow me on all those places, sign up to the newsletter. One last thing, I'm giving a webinar. So I gave one and it was fantastic and a whole load of you came. Thank you for that. I really enjoyed yesterday's webinar. I'm giving another one on Thursday at 6 p.m. UK time. I'm going to be talking about how you can make pretty good money by teaching artificial intelligence to business. So how you can go into businesses, show their staff how to use AI and get paid $1,000 per hour. I charge about £2,000 per hour, $3,000. I'm going to be talking about the demand, why companies are still willing to pay for this. I'm going to be talking about how much AI knowledge you need to have, what AI skill level you need to have, and how it's a lot lower than you might think. And I'm going to be talking about how you can become comfortable with public speaking so you can go up onto stage or give webinars, talking on camera to lots of people so you can unlock high paid gigs. So I'm going to be talking about those 3 things at 6 p.m. It's a totally free webinar. If you go to aiwithkyle.com/webinar, you'll be able to sign up. It's going to be 6 p.m. UK time. And we had loads of people come on Tuesday. So I'm hoping we can beat that. Having people from all over the world. I had somebody who came in from New Zealand and it was, I think, 7 a.m. in the morning for them, which is commitment. Thank you so much, everybody. Make sure you subscribe to the newsletter, aiwithkyle.com, and I will see you. Cheers.